A new partner for Zacian, it's Lucario Melmetal. Welcome back everyone to more from the Sableyes. I'm Mitch and I'm here today to talk through a second way, or a third way even, that we've looked at of playing Zacian V in the standard format, and that is utilising Lucario Melmetal-GX. We saw this deck with quite a lot of success in Japan, some success on day 2 of Oceania International Championships as well, and it could potentially be a good choice going forward. It's got lots of things going for it, and on the plus side, it plays Zacian V, which is one of the best cards ever printed. So let's take a look at the list on PTCGO and yeah, we'll check it out. So here we go. This is the list that we've been testing with. This is the one that came, that made day 2 on in the Oceania International Championships. I think there was only one, but one is all that there needs to be. It's based obviously around our Zacian V, which we know what does by now. Brave Blade for 230 and Intrepid Sword to draw 3 cards and attach Metal Energy is pretty strong. We played 4 copies of that card as well as 2 copies of Lucario and Melmetal Tag Team GX. This card saw quite a lot of success as a bit of a stall variant back in the day, but now we're seeing it in this to stop people from taking knockouts on our Zacian Vs. We're going to use full Metal Wall in order to make our Metal Pokemon take 30 less damage, and if we've got multiple Metal Energy attached to this Lucario Melmetal, then we discard all of the energy attached to our opponent's active Pokemon, which can be quite frustrating for them, especially considering the fact that they're usually reliant on having a large amount of energy in play. Pikarom needs 3, Mew Mew Malamar needs 3, Mewtwo Welder needs 3, and of course Zacian with ADP is quite reliant on having it as well. So that's a pretty good way to go. It's not quite as bulky as an ADP, but it definitely has a bit of strength after you've got that full Metal Wall in play. We also run 1 copy of the Dusk main Necrozma promo with Dusk Shot, which does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon GX or EX. Obviously we're going to be applying that 60 damage to a Pokemon GX on the bench, and it's a really good attack because in this deck we're not trying to multiply the amount of damage that our Zacians are doing. Instead we're just happy to hit with the 230. We're just not going to get knocked out in return. And if we're doing 230 to something like a Mewtwo, a Pikarom, or to a ADP, then usually they're going to be within range of that 60 snipe from Dusk Shot. Obviously ADP will be 10 short, but we can potentially get there in other ways. The 60 damage is really strong, and it means that 270 is a number that's very easy to get to. So I wouldn't be too upset if I was in that position. Actually, I've just realised my maths is completely wrong. Dusk Shot does knock out ADP. Ignore that. Don't worry about it. I just realised I was being dumb. Whoops. Anyway, very strong. You can also power up Rusty Claws in this particular deck if things are going well, because you've got Metal Patch, so you can get 3 energy onto this Dusk main Necrozma, do 100, and then potentially another 100 if your opponent is only on 1 prize card remaining. And this basic effectively has 160 HP, possibly even 190, so if you can get this down, get a couple of energy on there, you can just smack for 100, possibly a couple of times, so definitely worth having a look at. We've got a couple of other tech cards as well. We run 2 copies of Jirachi, a little bit of extra support, but not too much. We also have 1 Absol to stop our opponent from using Jirachi, 1 Oranguru in order to Primate Wisdom, Metal Energy, or other cards to the top of our deck, and 1 copy of Phione in order to gust around certain threats. Very strong Pokemon line, and it's all reliant on that Lucario Melmetal-GX attack. We've got a few other cards that are going to help us support that particular strategy. We've got Metal Saucer, 4 copies to power up our Pokemon as quickly as possible. We've got 2 copies of Tag Call to help us search out that particular Pokemon. It means we don't need to use any of our Quick Balls. We can save the 4 copies that we use for Zacians or other techs. We also play 4 copies of Switch so we can move in and out of the active. Zacian needs to refresh its ability to attack, so Switch is a very strong card in this deck, as is a single copy of a Skateboard. We'll attach that to a Jirachi, hopefully, and let it move in and out. We also have a couple of copies of Chaotic Swell, which is a card that lots of decks didn't run in Oceania, but have run in the past. It's good for slowing down decks that rely on stadiums to power up their Pokemon, like with Giant Hearth against Mew Mew Welder or Reshizard, or even helping our opponent, kind of stop our opponent from playing down things like Thunder Mountains, would limit their ability to use Pikachu Zekrom to full effect. So Chaotic Swell, definitely a good card in this deck. Also play 3 copies of Crushing Hammer. Obviously it's on a coin flip, so it's not guaranteed, but if you do flip heads a couple of times in a game, you'll find yourself slightly further in front. Obviously, if you can remove energy here and there and then hit them with a big GX attack, suddenly they've removed multiple energy from their field instead of just one, so that's pretty good. And we also have 3 copies of Pokémon Catcher, again on a coin flip, which is disappointing, but it's not too bad. Sometimes all we need to do is just flip a coin. If we get a heads, we can just bring up something and win the game from there. The rest of the supporter line is relatively simple. We've got 3 copies of Professor's Research and 3 copies of Marnie. Both new supporters are very strong. Professor's Research drawing more cards, and Marnie giving you access to Shuffle and Disruption. We also have 4 tag team supporters. Not 2 copies of Mallow Lana because we're going to be healing off lots of damage. People need to do a ton of damage to us. If they do less than 180, then we can potentially just heal it all off. So we're feeling pretty strong with that. 180 minus 30 because of the Frying Pan, which we have 3 copies of. Minus 30 from the Full Metal Wall is 120, and then we can heal that off with Mallow Lana. Seems pretty good. We also have 1 copy of Cynthia Caitlin in order to help us draw some cards if we draw a tag call instead of a supporter. Cynthia Caitlin can also help us find Mallow Lana again to heal some more of that damage off. And interestingly enough, we also play 1 copy of Belelba Bryson Man as well. And see, this is a out to mill. Sometimes your opponent will put themselves into a position where they only have 3 cards remaining. And if they do that, then you just play Belelba Bryson Man and remove all of their cards from play. It's a good option. Means that against mill especially, you're going to be playing a very, very slow game. So Belelba Bryson Man can come up clutch in that one. Especially since you can search for it with Tag Call. Obviously, if your opponent knows you have it, it could be a little bit awkward, but hey, that's fine. Finally, 12 Metal Energy. It's a higher number of Metal Energy than ADP Zacian plays. We don't need to have the Metal, which means 2 things. Firstly, we're more likely to draw into them, to be able to discard them to use Metal Patch, which is really good, and we're also more likely to get them off of an Intrepid Sword, so we're more likely to get that crazy triple Metal Energy Intrepid Sword with this deck than we would be with ADP Zacian. It's a pretty strong deck. I love Zacian V. Very, very good card. Intrepid Sword is great. Brave Blade is great. Could this be the way to play it? I'm not sure. We'll check it out on the ladder. Here we go, some gameplay for you. I've sped it up slightly because it was a bit of a slow game. We're playing ADP... no, sorry, not ADP Zacian. We're playing Lucario Melmetal-Zacian, and we are going up against a lightning deck here. I believe it's Morpeko V, so this could be a very interesting one. Obviously, Morpeko having a low hit point total is a bit of a problem for them, but of course we can potentially heal off all of the damage that they place. So they've got themselves a Tapu Koko Prism and an attachment. That seems pretty strong, and we've got a really strong hand here as well. We can play down a Swell, which is going to stop a Thunder Mountain. We're going to grab ourselves a Professor's Research, I think, off of this Jirachi. We've got an Escape Board, we've got a Metal Saucer, and a Oranguru. We've got a whole bunch of stuff we can do here. So we'll Oranguru this Metal Saucer to the top of the deck, which will mean that we'll draw it into this hand with Professor's Research. Oh, and we've just got a Quick Ball there as well, so we can potentially even grab ourselves a Lucario Melmetal and attach to that. That seems like a better play here. One of the things that Morpeko will struggle to do is get their energy attached quickly, so Crushing Hammer could have come up clutch there, but didn't. Metal Frying Pan going down onto our Lucario Melmetal, and I think that the best play here is just to retreat into that Lucario Melmetal and then Intrepid Sword. I'm tossing it up here, I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of a bit awkward. I don't want to lose this Jirachi. It's my only escape board. We'll Intrepid Sword, and we'll grab ourselves a few more cards. We're in a pretty strong spot. It means that if we do grab the second energy, we can Full Metal Wall for the full effect, which will remove all of the energy from our opposing Morpeko. A bit of a shame here, we're getting Marnie, but that's okay. Nothing in our hand that we desperately need. We know that we've got access to Mallow Lana later. We've got a Tag Call here, and a Crushing Hammer, which is pretty good. We can attach an energy to this Lucario Melmetal. They've got a couple of Lily's Pokédolls down, which is going to be a pain. And then just sparking here, 0 damage to the active because of the Frying Pan, and 20 to the Zacian on the bench. So I think now we'll just flip this coin here. It doesn't really matter that we didn't get it. It's not the end of the world. We'll Cynthia and Caitlin away this Lucario Melmetal just to grab some cards. And because we've already played down our Professor Sycamore, or Professor's Research, sorry, we can grab that back, an attachment to the active, and we'll be able to GX attack for a full effect here. We'll get 30 less damage on our metal Pokemon, as well as removing our opponent's energy. So that will be very frustrating for them. They're not going to be able to Electro Wheel anytime soon. The issue that we're currently having is that we're not going to be able to put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves. This Morpeko V with 170 HP probably going to sit in the active a little longer, considering they just lost all their energy. They can attach one here. They'll probably go for the Spark again, although if they can, they might try and get out of the active an extra a little bit of damage attempting to go onto the Zacian, but because of that full metal wall, nothing happens. So we're all good here. We've got an interesting situation here because we could potentially find ourselves enough cards to knock out this Tapu Koko. We've got a switch and we've got ourselves a research here. So what we could do is we could attach to the Lucario Melmetal and potentially even custom catcher up, Pokemon Catcher up this Tapu Koko, which since we got the coin flip there, yes, we'll bring it up. We'll switch into the Jirachi. We'll play down this Zacian. We've got a Research and a Jirachi to find a Saucer, but we hit it off of the Research here. So now we've got 4 energy on the Lucario Melmetal. We can Stellar Wish here. Thinking about grabbing the Frying Pan. Probably don't need to. Probably just grab the Metal Saucer to help me power up another attacker. We can just retreat into this Lucario Melmetal, and then Heavy Impact will be a knockout. Exact correct numbers. Resistance takes it down to 130, which is the number that we need. And that's really big, because now with Chaotic Swell in play and Tapu Koko Prism knocked out, it is super unlikely that this Morpeko gets off an Electro Wheel this turn. Again, we're getting Marnied. Our opponent will draw 5 cards and we'll draw 4. This time it's not quite as good, but we do at least have our Lucario Melmetal in the active. So whatever happens, we'll be able to do a decent amount of damage here. Looks like they're just going to switch into a Lily's Pokédoll, and that's completely fair. I've got a Crushing Hammer here. If we could hit heads, this would be big, but no, we miss out. An attachment to the Zacian. We might do some little playing around here, some buttons being clicked. We'll attach this Frying Pan, and then we'll just Steel Fist. Takes the knockout on the Pokédoll, and the good thing is as well, it shuffles the deck, so I won't attach the energy, but it means that that Chaotic Swell that was our top deck is not going to be there anymore. It means that we've got a chance to draw a better card. Now our opponent is in a position where they can start to draw more cards themselves. They've got a Dedenne, which they're going to use, draw themselves up to 6. They've got Lucario GX, which they could make use of as well. And that Volkner seems pretty good too, so they'll be able to grab out anything that they like. An Electro Power coming down here, as well as a Lightning Energy. And that means the Electro Power will push the damage of this Electro Wheel up just a smidge, although to be fair, with the Full Metal Wall and the Frying Pan, it's going to be tough to deal any amount of damage that is relatively useful. I mean, they need to half hit here, and at the moment, they're only hitting for 120, which is not quite enough. That's it's not necessarily what they're looking for. 120 is a 3 hit, which kind of makes it a little bit difficult to utilize this particular Pokemon. We're going to Quick Ball here. We'll grab ourselves, I think the Dust main is pretty strong. When they stick the Lily's Pokédoll in the active, we can potentially get ourselves some chip damage onto something like that Oricorio, which we could set up for a knockout for later. I think we're just in a position here where we could just Steel Fist. I don't know if there's anything else that we realistically do. I don't really want this Zacian V in my hand, so I'll just draw something else. That switch is pretty good. I'm going to hold on to the rest of these cards. I don't really need anything now. If they want to Marnie, they can Marnie, that's fine. And we'll do the same thing again, Steel Fist, and we'll shuffle our deck so that we don't draw that Zacian next turn. Alright, so our opponent could potentially get a knockout this turn. They've got an Electro Power here. They need a second one to take a knockout on the LucaMetal, which would be pretty good for them. But we're in a position, we've got a Quick Ball. If the Phione is in deck, we can grab it out and then gust up something other than the Pokédoll that they put in the active, which would be really, really good. Guaranteed a knockout on anything here if we do find that Phione. They've got the Oricorio here to draw a few more cards, and you can see how this deck starts to really power through very quickly. Morpeko with Electro Wheel doesn't take the knockout. It's only 120, so missing that extra Electro power must be very frustrating for our opponent. And it means now that we're in a position where, firstly, we can grab Mallow Lana's off of this Tankle, but secondly, we're unlikely to get knocked out next turn. They've already used at least 2 of their cards to increase their damage output. We're going to discard this Quick Ball, and I think the Metal Energy, I'm not super reliant on it right now. The healing is the most important thing. We can grab ourselves a Metal Saucer off of this Jirachi, which means now we've got access to a whole bunch of energy. We might attach one of those at least. We'll chuck it down onto that Dusk main, then we can just retreat straight into it, and then Dust Shot, like I mentioned before, we can put some damage onto this Oricorio, and now a Gust on that Oricorio, we can knock it out with Lucario Melmetal, or if they don't take a knockout on this Dust main, we could potentially snipe around it next couple of turns as well, and get some damage done. Again, the best thing about this is that our opponent using their regular attack with Morpeko is only doing 120, so they need to find E-Power just to take one prize here. So here comes Morpeko. They've got the energy, which is really good, but they don't have the Pokédoll, so they're just going to have to take the loss of the prize here. If they've got the Electro Power, then they'll take a prize themselves, but they doesn't look like they've actually got it. They've got a Custom Catcher though, so they'll Custom Catcher up this Zacian. Interesting choice considering they knew that I didn't actually, I've already got the Mallow Lana in hand. Maybe they're hoping to force me to do it, but little do they know I've got the switch as well. So I can just switch into this Jirachi and then we're good to go. It's a bit of a really strong position for us here. We can Primate Wisdom one of these cards on top of the deck. We'll grab the Mallow Lana just in case our opponent does decide that they want to Marnie us. Actually, we'll Marnie ourselves to be fair, and we can just grab that Mallow Lana anyway. And yeah, we're in a position now where we can retreat into either the Lucario Melmetal or the Dust main, and we can take a knockout. I'm actually not going to Stellar Wish here. I don't really need anything, and I've only got 10 cards in deck, so I don't want to deck myself here. Let's give myself as many resources as possible, and then I can just heavy impact, take a knockout in this Jirachi, and I actually unprize the Phione, which is really strong. So now if my opponent ever takes a knockout, I can potentially get one myself off of a Phione, which I really like. They've only got 1 bench space left, which means they've only got access to 1 doll. If they do put it down, then that's going to be it. I'm going to be able to Phione around it. Looks like Volkner's coming down here. They can potentially find a Gust, take a knockout on this Zacian if they'd like, or they can just guarantee the Pokédoll, which is also fair. They'll grab that down, and it means that they're going to take another 120 damage, potentially 150 if they can find a couple of those E-Powers, but it doesn't look like they've got them. So Electro Wheel here is going to do just a pitiful 90 damage, which is not particularly strong. Just taking a look there, not a lot going on for our opponent, and the fact that they only did 90 there is really, really awkward. It means that this Mallow Lana is going to heal a lot of this damage off. We'll discard the Zacian and a Metal, and then we'll just retreat into this Jirachi. 120 healed means there's 90 left. And we can also flip this coin here, this Pokémon Catcher. This is really big because now we can bring this Morpeko out and attach to the Zacian. We'll just retreat again, no need to Stellar Wish, and Brave Blade, which removes all of their energy from play. That's a big turn for us because 2 prizes here and our opponent is 3 turns away from attacking. They can't play down their stadium because we've got the Chaotic Swell. They can't use Tapu Koko. They have to manually attach. So this has given us heaps of time to start sniping that Oricorio. If we get 2 snipes on it, then we win the game. And we're in a position where we're probably going to be able to do that. We can manually retreat into that Dust main Necrozma and start sniping. And yeah, they're just playing down Pokédolls here. All they can realistically do is stick a Pokédoll in the active and hope for the best, which is good for us. We even top deck the switch, so we can use that switch here to retreat into that Dust main Necrozma, which will then allow us to start Dusk shotting this Oricorio. If we are able to get 1 more off, we'll win the game. Our opponent needs to get an attack this turn, and the chances of it happening, you have to say, are pretty slim. They'll need an energy attachment. They'll need, which they've got. They'll need the Thunder Mountain, and they'll need to remove the stadium as well. So if they got the Marshadow in deck, then maybe they can take a knockout. But is it going to be enough? You'd have to ask. I don't know. I don't think so. Guzmahala coming out here. If they've got all they need, then now's the time to get it, but no, that is the end of this one. If you're looking for another way to play Zacian, then this could be the deck for you. Lucario Melmetal gives it just that little bit of an extra slant that your opponent might not be prepared for. Anyway, thank you very much for checking out the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got one more deck to look at from Melbourne Internationals. That is Baby Blacephalon coming up tomorrow. Thank you very much. If you want to see that video, subscribe. Click the button that's just here. There are some videos that YouTube thinks you might like down the side, as well as a playlist of more Sword and Shield content down below. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and apart from that, we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.